Councilman Rouse.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Livingston. Davis.
Aye.
Butterfield. Oh, aye.
Motion passes. I'll turn it over to, Chris.
Yes, please.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Mayor, members of the council and the public, thanks for joining us for the second and final work session regarding the with Willmar comprehensive plan. Today is going to be a little different from last work session, so we'll kind of go through some of the items now. Some of the slides you will see if you were at the first work session will be a little familiar, but I'll run through these. I just want to give special thanks to all of the organizations that we participated with and partner with throughout our year-long process, our focus group members, planning commissioners, mayor and city council members, as well as the city staff that's represented today. You'll also hear from some of the city staff too, regarding some of the chapters that are best affiliated with their department. So a comprehensive plan, I'm not going to go through this word by word, but you all kind of know what a comprehensive plan is by now. Basically, it is a guiding document for future work and future capital improvement projects. Basically gives us a guidance on what we should be doing in the future. One thing to really point out, and I don't believe I mentioned this in the past, but this document basically sets up our planning department to have a list of priorities to accomplish. So we're looking at a 20-year lens out for the city. This plan is always evolving, always living. It's a living document. So we would recommend that it's updated every 7 to 10 years or more frequent to make amendments to it. State statute, Minnesota state statute does not require the city of Willmar to do a comprehensive plan. However, if you want to have a future land use map or do any zoning, they lay out kind of a framework of what you should follow. And so that's what we've taken advice from. So I want to do a quick review of kind of where we were and what we did at our March 24th work session. Our public process, you'll see the yellow check is basically pending, so that's what we're doing today. All the green is completed, so we had a draft document that we released March 18th. The first joint work session was on the 24th. We'll dive into that a little. Public comment that closed, so that was open from basically the 18th all the way until before the 18th, so over a month. We closed that on April 11th, and we got some really good feedback and comments from the public, as well as people here in the room. So thank you for participating in that way. We are today at the second joint work session. I decorated the room for you all, so I like it. But big kudos to the community center on all the work they do, especially hosting the Father's Daughter Dance, which is the decorations here. So we'll do a briefing and we'll call for a public hearing at City Council on the 19th. Planning Commission, we're going to ask for a recommendation that City Council adopts the plan on the 21st. And then if everything goes well and we have a finalized document and take into consideration all the feedback, we'll have that in front of City Council for adoption or consideration for adoption on the 16th of June. Any questions? All right, so let's talk about the joint work session. You kind of learned at that work session that the plan is organized by 9 different elements, which we are going to go over the second part of that. The individual chapters, they all identify planning needs and then come up with strategies too. These strategies are really actionable, and the great thing about the strategies in this document, it was done with Willmar, and residents actually kind of framed these strategies themselves, and that's what we're working with. And then if you also saw that it was what future users are going to use the plan. So city council, planning commissioners, as well as city staff, residents too. March 24th was heavy on mobility. As you know, the city, we do at times we've done a lot of different plans, and those have been silo plans. What we're trying to, or what our aim is with Willmar, is to make sure that we're having appendixes to our comprehensive plan. And so we're focused on the Safe Streets for All plan, as well as the pedestrian, bike, and trails plan. Both plans are fed into the mobility chapter of the comprehensive plan. It's a lot of talk about planning and documents. So I'm going to try and break it down. But Safe Streets for All, we got a $200,000 grant, a federal grant, to kind of do it, and we hired Willmar to do it. It took a look comprehensively throughout the city to make sure that intersections were safe and the way that we commute throughout the city on foot, wheel, or any multimodal ways was all inclusive of the Safe Streets for All plan. Then the pedestrian, bike, and trail plans, we're trying to find those gaps and opportunities where we can extend and repair trails, as well as making sure that everyone can get around the city if you're a pedestrian or if you're riding a bike. There's a familiar board here. You'll see on the stage with me is the Willmar comprehensive plan. So we took that around to all of our engagement all last year throughout the summer. One of my favorite things is this picture too. But you'll see there's youth involved in this plan too. And so they got a chance to sign their name, but they also gave us feedback. When I first started talking about the comprehensive plan, one story stood out to me. We were at Rocket Robins, Chris Frank and myself, and Kyle Box as well. And I was trying to explain to an 8-year-old what a comprehensive plan is. And I told him, so within 20 years, you'll be 28. This plan was done with you in mind. I said, isn't that cool? And he looked at me and said, not only is it cool, it's smart. So what's all included? Again, the green checks are kind of the chapters that we all went over for March 24th. And then the yellow one you'll hear today, arts and culture. You'll hear about housing, economic opportunities will come at a later date, perhaps at briefing with City Council, parks and open space, natural resources, and resiliency. You'll hear about public facilities at a later date. And today we're going to do a strong focus on implementation. We also talked about who would actually use a comprehensive plan. And so this is a plan not to be set on a shelf. It was not done in an office, but it was done with the community. And so we see that our residents will definitely be a part of using this plan. Business owners, government partners, and city staff, and city council members as well. Before I move on to implementation, are there any questions? Feeling good so far? Thanks, Tom. I saw your handshake. Thank you. So implementation is the heart of this plan. Most of the time, you'll see a plan and it reads like a research document. There needs to be actionable items to make sure that we can achieve and make sure that we're measuring success of the plan. And so this document, though it is a large document, the implementation chapter is probably one of the strongest chapters because it kind of lays out when and how we can get things done. I'm going to take just a few seconds to kind of talk about the implementation chapter. So what you'll notice is left to right, you're going to see which print plan element the strategy is touching. So it might be housing, land use, it could be economic development. And then you'll see that the recommendation itself. So it's more narrative, it kind of tells you, it gives us a framework of what we're looking to implement. The intent is there. The strategy itself might evolve and it might change. The timeline of it, we kind of broke it down into things that are just happening, continuing, ongoing throughout our day-to-day operations, as well as making sure that we're looking at short-term, medium, and long-term plans. So you'll see a bubble by each strategy. Today, we're going to go through some of those strategies for the 4 or 5 chapters that we'll talk about today. And then we'll talk about complexity. So complexity is not equal though. So you're going to see one that is, let's say, low to medium or low to high. We could do some of the work internally, but some of the work will need a consultant to do for future work too. One that comes to mind is the rewrite of the zoning code, which is a large one. Right now, we're operating from 1994 zoning code. And what happens is that we have a lot of applications for rezoning and conditional use permits that possibly could be less time for development and business owners to kind of get things done. So we'll look to like update the zoning code so it can be modernized that way. So we'll talk about the benefits, and then where you really come in and we'll need feedback is, are we missing any other partners? So we identify some partners for each strategy. If we're missing any, let us know today. That'll be a great help. And then we put something in there like a narrative about how we can measure work success. And then last year, while we're working through with the public about with the Willmar, our initial intent was to come up with Willmar because we wanted to be very intentional about engaging the public in the comprehensive plan. What we heard though throughout our engagement was a constant trend of, I work in Willmar, I want to do innovative things, I want to be in a place where I can thrive. And a lot of people are saying, well, Willmar is home. And so we kind of broke out WITH into an acronym. And so you'll see each strategy is kind of related to if it's for working in Willmar, if it's to innovate, to thrive, and to home, and how those can support those key icons. I'm going to turn it over to Chris Frank to talk about parks and open space.
All right, good evening. Rob couldn't be here, so I'm taking over. So hopefully nobody's got any complicated parks questions, because if you do, you might have to save them for Rob. So this is the parks chapter. I'll give a quick overview. Some of this is pulled from the comprehensive plan, but we identified kind of the main needs for our parks going into the future are equitable access and then climate and resiliency. So equitable access would be, physical access to people with disabilities or underserved communities. That could be poverty, race, age, both young and old. So just identifying where those groups exist in the community and making sure that they're served by those parks around the city. And then climate resiliency, obviously we are moving towards climate that is a little different from what we have had traditionally in Minnesota. So just making sure that we have enough green space to absorb carbon, tree cover, just things like that to make sure that both our park system and our city has that green resilience. So some of those strategies that could play out are future amenities. So innovation and sustainable playgrounds for the 21st century. So that would include making sure we keep our parks up to date. So all these new cool jungle gyms, or you look at the destination playground on Robbins Island, all the neat zip lines and things they have out there. Just keep our parks up to date with things that will get people out to those parks. Another great example would be the pickleball courts. I mean, every time I drive by, those things are filled. So we need to make sure we stay on top of innovation to make sure that we keep generating interest in our parks. Green again, just touching on the strategies for green, which we'll be going over in more depth, is identifying where are kind of the more bare spots for greenage in Willmar, areas that need to be more green, areas that need more tree cover, areas around the city that are producing more carbon that don't have a park nearby to absorb as much as possible. So those are things that we'll be looking at from that green strategy. With all of our chapters, you'll see in the book, we have the same guiding principles, and our 4 main guiding principles for every chapter are sustainability, inclusivity, innovation, and resilience. And then each chapter breaks down how it fits into those guiding principles. So for parks, sustainability and resilience are kind of go hand in hand. They're that green side, making sure that we are adapting that climate, producing as much green space as possible, as much tree cover as possible to absorb that carbon, and just give everyone a green place that isn't asphalt and tar to enjoy themselves with. And then inclusivity and innovation are those other ones I touched on. We're making sure we're hitting all our demographics with what their needs are for their parks, and innovation to keep updating the parks to keep people interested in getting back to said parks. This is included in the comprehensive plans, the watershed map. All the green spaces on this map are existing parks, green spaces, or areas dedicated that could become parks if they're not already. And then the bubble, the buffers around them is a 1/4 mile area. So the watershed map is kind of showing what area of the city is covered, and that everyone in those buffer zones has a 1/4 mile walk to a park. So you can see Willmar does a pretty good job of getting a lot of the city covered, but there are some gaps, especially down First Street in our regional commercial area. And then out on Highway 12 East, there's a large gap there. And then heading north, where we see more developments along the lakes, a lot of those future developments up by Swan Lake and whatnot don't have anything that made it on this map either. So I know one spot that I always think of now is the old water treatment plant there across from Cashwise. That whole area used to also be a dump, so it's a brownfield, so there may be issues developing there. So in the future, if we can't develop on it, that could be a good spot for possibly some green and some park. So, anybody have questions on this map? Can it jump out to anybody or thoughts? Just a moment. Okay, well then we'll get into some of the actual strategies. So I'll click ahead real quick. In the book, here's the implementation page for Parks and Rec. But we broke them out into their own separate pages here for discussion. But the big one, and if Rob was here, he'd tell you that he's been he's been ready to go on the new Parks Master Plan for a while. We've had to keep delaying him because we wanted to get the comprehensive plan together first. But that is in the works and will be happening shortly after we pass the comprehensive plan. And so Parks will have its own master plan that will be an appendix to the comp plan, as Mr. Director Corbett was alluding to. So that there will be the overall comprehensive plan, and then we'll also have the Parks specific master plan to kind of govern everything that the Parks will be doing. And then a couple of other things we've identified for parks is once we get this network of parks together, and this kind of will touch with the bike, trail, and pedestrian plan. We need wayfinding and signage around town for people to get to those parks. So if you're in one of those 1/4 mile watershed areas, you also have to have something to guide you to those parks. Or if you're at one park and want to get to another park, signage to get you there. This will go to our trails too. When you're coming down the Glacial Lakes Trail, if you're trying to get to Robbins Island, or you're trying to get into downtown Willmar, which would be nice. Make sure there's adequate signage there to let them know where they're going and also protect them. Make sure that the road traffic goes to slow down for these areas that are popular for trails and biking. This kind of goes to, I was talking about upgrading parks before, but this could be also public buildings, upgrading public buildings, and then making sure they're ADA accessible, making sure the parks are ADA accessible. Just getting everyone to these parks as possible and making sure we don't leave anyone behind that may have historically been left behind. And funding, of course, everybody likes more parks. So there's another one that I didn't make another slide on, but it's park dedication, which could go hand in hand with a little bit of funding. Where do we need to look at, for the subdivisions we do in town, do we need to look at increasing park dedications from subdivisions, or if you're not going to have a park, increasing the amount you pay in lieu of a park? Things like that are discussions we could have. And then just general funding from the capital budget every year for parks. Needed. And then again, here is if you want to see these, here is the page in the implementation chapter on Parks and Rec. Every chapter will have a similar page for each of the chapters within that implementation plan. So, last time we just talked to you the entire time. We were hoping this meeting would be a little bit more interactive. So going through any of these, if anyone's got any questions on any of these goals or things that aren't in here that they think they should be in here, I would love to take some questions or feedback on any of these.
Did you come up with any comments? Possibilities for the auditorium?
That's a good question, and I know that will probably also be in our public facilities chapter. At this time, I don't have any update or plan for it.
So we did not do a analysis on our public buildings per se. Our public facility chapter, it'll highlight all of our assets that we do have and take a look at infrastructure needs for development and fiber being one. Just some of the work that we've been doing in that way. A lot of the public facilities chapter is coming from or stemming from WMU did a master plan of their own in 2019, and we're pulling information from here. So trying to find the gaps in infrastructure.
Comments or idea or recommendation that could help us?
We did not do any of the public facilities, and we did not take a look at a future city hall.
I will add on the innovation and green aspects. I know the Glacial Lakes Trail head there next to the Civic Center, where it stopped there. It's not exactly the head, but the head for Willmar. Parks and Rec are installing a new, I don't know what it'd be called, but it's a green bathroom. So it's a bathroom that composts all the waste that goes into it. And as I understand it, the only maintenance required on it really is filling it with water in certain intervals during the year. So it'll be able to power itself, clean itself, maintain itself, all with just the, all by itself. So the only, like I said, the only maintenance is just filling it with water every so often. So that'll be interesting. So if that works out really well and goes as planned, I know Parks and Rec plans to try to put a lot more of those around park system. So the nerdy side of me is very interested to see how this bathroom pans out. So.
Speaking of the Glacial Lakes Trail, on the several, you don't have to go back, but on the slide that was the wayfinding and interpretive signage, Christopher, you had specifically got me thinking about partners. I would think we would probably want the DNR on there as partners, given the public water access and the Glacial Lake Trail are their properties, like jurisdiction sort of.
Yep.
So they might be good, either resources or if nothing else. I think over signs they might find valuable to put out.
That would make sense. Back to you. Any other thoughts from anyone else on parks? Or ideas where new ones could go, or upgrades to certain parks that would be needed? I know one we get a lot of complaints on is Voss Park. During flooding season, that can get pretty flooded, and we get a lot of people in that area that feel that park becomes pretty unusable for them. So,
Well, that used to be a pond,
yeah, correct.
and then the cart was running from Foot Lake into that pond.
Yeah.
That was in mid-70s.
When that area developed, I was working. The engineer came to me and said there's a field tile line that goes through there, and it's just going to be a stormwater detention pond. So that tile would drain it off forward That all,
It's in the discussions for the like sort of city long-term stormwater planning too. It has been for a while, it still is, there's definitely new attention to that water community.
It's a good way to put it, opportunity. All
There's
right,
also, I don't want to take forever. I just have one more comment. The SWCB, so the city's partnered with the Soil and Water Conservation District to do some pollinator plantings in some of the parks also. They're kind of turning small areas of grass that was being mowed that wasn't necessarily being utilized for anything into pollinator and like wildflower type habitat. I don't know if there's more opportunity for that too, or if that's not the direction.
oh, I would think there should be opportunity for that. And it also reminds me of, so the new ambulance garage is going in there next to Bremer, off Willmar Avenue. And so that parcel got split into a north and south and north half. The south half is gonna be the ambulance garage, the north half is not sold yet, but Gesh believes it'll be sold here sometime in the near future. So that community garden, we are attempting to move that right now. Along with that, there's probably going to be a request to council to probably shut that road down for street parking because of the bus and ambulance that's going through there. So we are trying to move that community garden. So if anyone has any contacts or any ideas on where to move that garden,
I had a discussion on it yesterday on facilities. Committee that met that we had. And there were a couple of places that were identified that they're going to look into the possibility.
yeah, we've got a couple potential ones too that we're still trying to get more information on, but hopefully we can get that moved here in the near future. But even more community gardens in the future would play into that innovation and green theme of getting people out into the community, growing their own food. Would just be, it's a big move that every city has been growing, so. But if there's nothing else left, I will turn it over to Justin for the natural resources and resiliency.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone. Good evening. My name is Justin DeLeo. I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Willmar, here to discuss Chapter 8 of the Comprehensive Plan, Natural Resources and Resiliency. Looking at needs and strategies, needs, obviously water quality is paramount to everything that we do, whether that's lakes, rivers, groundwater, that has the potential to be negatively impacted by growth. Whether that's new industrial, commercial, residential, we need to be mindful of that, keep that in our thoughts and for their future needs. Because without the quality water, we don't get very far. So it's a huge thing that we need to be mindful of. Climate change concerns, the impact of pollution, extreme weather events, climate change, just to be mindful of that and what they do to the quality of Willmar's natural resources. What steps can we take to protect this and help the future generations enjoy our wonderful community? Different strategies to tackle these issues, sustainable development. Can we incentivize developers or, with both expansion and what we already have, to put in sustainable features, that can keep our natural resources from harm, whether some of these, you can follow along on the pages, but, whether that's green roofs or stormwater systems, carbon neutral material usage, things like that. What kind of different options do we have out there that we can use? Along with that, we have different policies. Is there policies that the city should be mindful of that are directly adjacent to natural resources? We work closely with the DNR on shoreline things. We'll get into that in a little bit in the future here. But, green space, what can we do for smaller developments, existing developments? Moving along to the guiding principles, how can natural resources support our community? Sustainability, that's a huge one. Like we mentioned earlier, we want to protect our resources at all costs, and ensure that we continue to grow as a community, but not, as we do that, keep in mind that we're not jeopardizing any future generations, things like that, keeping the quality of our lakes and soils. Inclusivity, like Chris Frank mentioned earlier, we want to promote the access of these wonderful resources and facilities to all residents, whether visitors or longtime residents or anybody from any background. We want everyone to be involved with this. Innovation, are there new technologies? Are there new researches that can further protect our natural resources? What can we do there? And then finally, resilience, strengthen our durability and policies to protect all our resources against natural events. Looking further into the strategies, we talk about community resilience, continue to support and promote local hazard mitigation planning efforts. It's an ongoing timeline. It's not something that's going to be fixed overnight. We want to identify risks and vulnerabilities for extreme weather, such as heat or winter weather or tornadoes or wildfires, things like that, stuff that we locally, fortunately, haven't had to deal a whole lot with, but we still need to keep that all in mind to make a resilient community. We would partner, obviously, with the city itself, pollution control, Candioi County, and work through different techniques and different strategies that we can keep to go in that direction. Another one would be renewable power. Explore the development of solar fields or wind energy systems. I know we have the wind turbines that are currently being decommissioned or will be decommissioned shortly. Personally, great idea. It just didn't pan out quite how we thought it would. But something like that is, just because that didn't work out, I don't think it's something we should shelve indefinitely. Look at the developments in the power supply. How can we reduce energy costs? Is there community interest in this? Is there zoning amendments that we can make to, help some of these projects go along? And our natural amenities, when we prepare sites or subdivisions, we incorporate natural amenities and public access to these areas, recreation facilities for social activity, meet our neighbors, meet our friends, support aesthetics and stormwater management, things like that. How can we collaborate all these things together in our natural areas and make that work for everybody involved? Green infrastructure, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but promote strategies for stormwater management, retention areas. Just talked about Voss Park a few minutes ago. Swales, rain gardens, anything we can do to help our stormwater, keep costs down, make nice ponds for people to look at. You think of the storybooks where they're feeding the ducks out on the pond, whatever it is, but also that's also being useful. That's keeping stormwater out of someone's backyard and pushing it to a pond or something like that. How can we expand our natural resources? And here's that final slide, just like it's in every chapter. It's got the different elements, the recommendations, timelines, benefits, things of that nature. I'm not going to go through everything there, but you can page through it in your handout or look on the screen. I'd be happy to answer any questions to the best of my ability or call on my wonderful colleagues to help me out if anyone stumps me, but is there any questions or concerns that anyone would like to bring up at this point?
Yeah. I think I just saw on the website, talking about rain gardens that Sarah is selling rain barrels for $68 a piece.
That's right. Got, lots of rain barrels, in stock right now. It's the beginning of the season, so. No, they're composite, they're recycled, made out of recycled plastic, actually, so they'll last forever.
Do they come with, I mean, set up for everything, or do you have to, I suppose you have to
So they're pretty.
make it work for your home or business or whatever?
There's, so they're, I think something like 24 inches, something tall. The dimensions are on the website. But they come with a screen on top. That keeps out like leaves and debris and anything, squirrels, neighborhood cats, whatever that might sit around. And mosquitoes actually. The screen is fine enough that it keeps mosquitoes out. And then it comes with a, like a short, basically garden hose that you connect at the bottom of the rain barrel. And that has a on-off valve, so, you know, you can fill watering cans or other things, or attach another length of hose to actually, you know, reach directly to a garden or color bed or whatever. And then they also come with overflow hose, so that people who are putting them up, you know, next to their houses at the, you know, with the downspout, when the rain barrel fills up, it doesn't overflow down your foundation into your basement, that you can direct that overflow hose either into the grass or down your driveway or wherever you have it set. Yeah, it wouldn't take more than 5 minutes for most people to get them set up at their houses, so.
Awesome. Thank you for that info. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, if you're okay with it, can we take a quick 5-minute recess? Okay. So the time now is 5:49. Let's make it 5:50 and come back at 5:55. Thank you. We also, if you want to take a break and have refreshments, they're over here. Here. Fruit cake. Fruit cake.
68 dollars.
No, please.
This is much more. Yeah. Last year, I was like, they sold those things, oh, my
What was the shot? I don't know. I just double check. How do I do full screen? Full screen? Oh. We're just here.
So that's a
Take this path.
right. So there is that part.
This is an existing part. Class days and lessons together. That's not yeah. Have to be able to.
No, the SWCD also has the same range for staff, so. We're generally, I think, going to the SWCD advisory, I know. They call the city home right here. Serious, we built a bunch of work for you. So. That's the answer.
And look, you don't put that in the paper. I won't,
But.
I'm the one who's interested in Rich deal, and I don't think they.
Oh, everybody does, and Red County does.
Oh, I know this, okay.
Because they used to, because we all partnered together by literal time I loaded them out of Canada. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can have it here, and that's for you. Okay. Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and continue. So part of the comprehensive plan, the major part that you want to do, because Willmar is not required to do a comprehensive plan. It is to take a look at your future land use. So the future land use map is basically where we see development patterns happening and what entail people are coming to the planning and development department just to see, if we can cut down any of the red tape or regulations, any ways that we can perhaps better plan the city to see certain development happen in the place. So let's take a look at land use and development, chapter number 3. So right now, this is our existing land use map. You'll see throughout the city, you're going to see agriculture, you're going to see low density housing, medium, and high. You'll see that downtown by itself has its own like land use, which is more of like a mixed use. You'll see, I don't know if there it is. So I'm going to use this laser to point out a few things. Industrial, institutional, technology, we have a technology district, which is the Midwest campus, the former state hospital. So here it is over here. Parks and open space, you'll see some of the parks in green, this pale green or pastel green. This deeper one is going to be architecture or agriculture, excuse me. And then we have vacant land as well. Moving along to the proposed future land use map, this was out for public comment. It has been shared on our website, as well as we presented this to City Council early on, giving updates. And so there are some improvements that we see for our future land use map. So no longer do we have agriculture within city boundaries. We kind of identify the uses where we got rid of vacancy. So we know that we have an opportunity right in our city, our current city boundaries to develop within. You'll see south of Willmar Avenue on First Street. You'll see this is more of a regional, commercial, and mixed use. Whereas north of Willmar Avenue, you'll see this more like neighborhood commercial. You'll see neighborhood commercial being proposed on 19th Avenue, as well as downtown keeping is on the overlay, if you will. But coming into the city from east to west, you will notice that before we have like different mixes. We have some light industrial that's happening. We have some commercial and some vacancy. In the proposed future land use map, you're going to see more regional commercial on the eastern area of Highway 12 coming into the city. You can't probably really see it, but it's in your book and your handout on the future land use map. You'll see there's more mixed use coming into downtown and leaving downtown headed west. I'll pause there and then to see if there's any questions about the future land use map itself. Yes.
Last year, they were looking at putting up some tiny homes on the southeast side. Are those going to be tied in on this now, or how is it working with that? If this comes back in for the city, somebody wants to build this time.
Yeah, that's a great question. Councilmember Butterfield, the tiny homes would be more so related to zoning. So right now our zoning ordinance does not allow it to be built outright. There's ways around that. But right now the land use, what you'll see is perhaps tiny homes in the future being developed in more of the low density residential areas. So all the pale yellows, pastel yellows here. But our zoning code would need to be updated in order to even allow it. There's a common thread throughout the comprehensive plan, and it is our guiding principles. The four that you heard earlier today: sustainability, innovation, inclusivity. And so each chapter kind of outlines how they kind of relate to the guiding principles. So land use can definitely promote sustainable developments. It can promote mixed land uses. So land uses, look, this picture for one is just a rendering and it's not being proposed in any way, but you'll see that there's more of like a medium mid-density in the back, and then you have a park and you have commercial spaces as well. And so that is going to be promoting mixed land uses to kind of work together. You'll see that land use can shape policies that foster innovative districts dedicated to innovation, like establishing an MLS campus, which is an innovation district itself. And land use can also promote a diverse range of uses throughout the city, enhancing our resiliency, which you heard today, adaptability to our economy as well. So I know that I brought the land use, the future land use map to City Council before. Today, I kind of wanted to focus on our urban growth boundary. What you see is a map of Willmar, and everywhere there's a yellow, inside of the yellow line is the city boundary. So the land use, we talked about the urban growth boundary is everything outside of the city limits. So there's another map, and I'm gonna show you that in a minute. For this purpose, we just squared it out. What you'll notice is these are future ways that we can develop. Right now, we're seeing development patterns happening to the north and to the west of the city, but we also know that we have an opportunity to develop within city limits. So we're not done in the city yet. There's infrastructure needs to make sure that development can happen. We can actually go through some of that during our discussion. So let's say that for this exercise, the urban growth boundary is a square around the city boundaries. Inside of the square, you'll see that we have some areas outside of the city that's marked for the urban growth boundary reserve. It's actually reserved from the county. And so you'll see the lighter ones that have the letters on them, like A, B, C. Those are not priority areas. Those are just identifying what potential future uses could be placed in those boundaries. Did I confuse you with that? Or is that clear? Let me take it another. Let me try it again. So A, B, and C, E, F, G, H. Those are not priority areas. Those are just, and in the plan, in the land use chapter, you'll see right after this map in your document, it is just highlighting what uses can be placed there. For the comprehensive plan, we did not, and we purposely did not actually identify uses or plan it out for future uses, but we're using our recommendation based on development patterns happening in and out of the city. We're using those patterns to kind of give us a guidance or framework on it. Any questions about the future land use map? Yes.
Mixed use being priority here in your guiding principles, there's not a lot of mixed use. So if somebody wanted to put mixed use into residential areas or other retail areas, is that going to be a priority? Is that going to be easier to change? Or what is that?
So currently, right now, we have to update our zoning code where it is the future land use map only pertains to the uses themselves. The zoning code kind of depicts what can be, what and how and what can be built in that area. There are some mixed use, I guess this map kind of shows it, but the stripe. So we know that we'll see mixed use development happening more at a neighborhood commercial scale and not like a large scale. The largest one being in this regional commercial area, so south of Willmar Avenue on First Street. So perhaps if there's a redevelopment opportunity for the mall, that can include both green space, commercial, as well as housing too. And so if a person did bring, I imagine if an applicant did bring mixed use development, we'll want to reference the future land use map, which will be adopted for the comprehensive plan to make sure that development is aligned with the map.
If priority is in an orange or blue section, priority is, let's say, well, not. That's
Yes. Institutional.
What's retail?
Yep. So retail is going to be mixed use. It's going to be the stripe on the future land use map.
So I guess if you had high density and mixed use, as long as there's apartments, can you then add retail?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it can be horizontal or it can be vertical. And mixed use can also include office space too. So, any other questions? So we wanted to highlight just a few of the land use strategies, and we did this for each chapter. The first one I'm going to say is a high complexity one. It's going to take a consultant to assist us. We can't do it all internally, but it is to update our 1994 zoning code See, eliminate barriers to housing development and address inconsistencies within our zoning code. It's a short-term timeline, so that 1 to 3 years. It could happen a lot sooner than that with the consultant. The benefit of it is development standards are practical, enforceable, and transparent. And we've done a lot of the work trying to streamline our land use processes and applications already internally, and working through the planning commission to make sure that things are happening transparent and the least amount of time. Our partners, of course, is always going to be the city of Willmar, since we own the zoning code and enforce it. Developers, residents, landowners, and our business community. Again, a consultant. And then the way that we can measure success is to make sure that the zoning code, the updated zoning code, is adopted, and the ordinance reflect the vision of our comprehensive plan and future land use map. Curious to know if there's any partners that you think we're missing from the strategy. No? Okay. Did I say we? Did I hear something? You're right. I think the county should definitely be a part of it. KCD. Okay. We'll take a note of those two to add to the 1994 zoning code update. That's great. Anyone else?
Who else has zoning codes? Other cities?
Other cities, yes. The county has one, yes. For the area that they govern, yes. Inside of each chapter too, we did a deeper dive than what we're seeing here for each strategy, but we'll definitely add KCAD as well as the county. All right, overlay districts. Some people know what overlay districts are, some don't. We actually have an active one, which is the Renaissance Zone. The Renaissance Zone is mostly in the downtown area. This actually came directly from our public engagement that we had, but an overlay district, it would establish that encourage development in key gateway areas into the city. I kind of hinted to it earlier during the presentation that, coming into the city, east to west, if you're coming north to south, those are our gateway into Willmar. So we want to make sure that overlay districts are placed in those areas to make sure that we're promoting development and making sure that we're creating an environment that says, welcome to Willmar. So this will look like a strategic growth and economic activity into key gateway areas, attracting new businesses and investments. This can be all buildings. It should not be. It should be a mix of open space and architectural elements to it as well. We can do mixed use development and wayfinding as well. So it's the way that the way that a traveler will see the city. It's a key gateway area. So some of our partners, of course, the city, this is something that we will own. WWU, our utilities, public utilities, to make sure that our utility and infrastructure has capacity to handle larger development or more development in certain areas, as well as residents. Again, this is a strategy that came directly from our residents when talking to them about future needs for the city. The way that we can measure success is to track increases in businesses opening. This is very economic development driven, making sure that investments in the overlay districts are happening, making sure that just in general that the physical appearance of the gateways are changed. Yes.
As far as partners, would we want to include the railroad?
They're a big landowner on our gateway into 12. So yes, we'll add BNSF to this one too. There's actually a strategy to Councilman Member Schultes in the chapter, in the land use development chapter, that calls out a rail corridor study. meaning that we need to take a look at all the activity that is happening parallel to Highway 12 and come up with standards for the rail and the way that people are commuting on both sides, the separation between the north and the south.
I'm curious with what rights we have to try to make that corridor better. I mean, can you require people to paint their house or, I mean, we have an ordinance that says you can't have stuff sitting all over. We don't enforce it right now, but we have one. So, is that something we need to tighten up, or how do you get people on that corridor to do it?
Councilperson Nelson, that is always a constant conversation that we're having in City Hall and throughout other departments too. The primary goal for the city is to be a really good neighbor. And so there are some enforcement that we can do and we constantly do. We are looking to take an approach more programmatic, if you will. And so having the comprehensive plan done, and perhaps this looks like offering a benefit or incentive, providing mini grants to homeowners. A lot of the areas in which you're speaking about the gateway are rental properties. And so not necessarily the tenant responsibility. And so we need to do some targeted outreach to landowners along the gateway to make sure that they know what options they have, what our code is, and how we can enforce it. The other option is to, and this is a sneak peek, but we just hired a new code enforcement and rental housing inspector. And one thing that we're adamant about doing is creating blitz. And so a blitz for cleanup. This will be communicated to the entire city when we're doing it, coming up with resources where people can drop trash or to recycle applying old appliances or anything like that, just to give everyone a fair chance to make sure that they are in compliance with our code, especially when it comes to excessive trash or things like that. So we're working on it. There's some things that the city can do, and being a resource to a lot of landowners or to the tenants is one of them.
Christopher,
Yes.
what, if anything, can we do with, on the east end, we talk about the entrance, the railroad, right in the area of, just after the fireplace center, between, yeah,
It's no secret that the railroad is one of, no matter where you are, whatever community you are, the railroad is the hardest person, to work with. We are in conversations. I feel like those conversations are going really well. There's one thing to request that they do it, is another way to get them on board and work through some of these problems with. This isn't going to be a flick of a switch, but we're having very early conversations about the rail corridor in general. So, and what how their property might add blight to Highway 12. So we're having those conversations.
I've also had conversations with business people and others within the community. And I had talked about having like a rural housing type of development between where Domino's used to be and over to where, if you remember, Highway 12 motel was in there. That area, north, this west of where the railroad comes right up Highway 12, right across the street from that area. If we can have colorful rural housing in there, I think that would be a great improvement.
Yeah, I would agree with you. There's definitely room for improvement along that corridor. So there are developers interested, and we haven't received any applications yet, but hopefully in the future we will. I thought I saw another hand. Did you finish it?
Sure. Well, I was gonna, I love the idea and what Audrey had said, concern too, of doing like sort of community cleanup days or encouragement, and I think that is exactly where the city should try to support and partner, whether it's recycling or appliances or whatever. But it is my understanding that it's difficult or not an option for the city to force a homeowner to spend money. Like the city can't
Yes.
force you to replace your roof. The city can't force you to replace broken windows. The city can't force you to spend money on your property. It's right.
Yes, you're correct. Yeah. So that's part of us just being a good neighbor to, and making sure that we have programs out for long-term homeowners to make sure that, rehabilitation can take place on their properties too. Thanks for pointing. Yes,
Just follow up on that, the appliance recycling. I know the city of River Falls hired Rick Tice to go out there and pick up refrigerators and appliances and stuff like that. I think Willmar started once at Bakerville, maybe or something. So, I think there'd be something to be in contact with Rick Tice out there. That's stuff we recycle.
Okay.
Because they've done it before, they did it at Bakerville one year.
Yeah. I was out by the recycling center.
Does this comprehensive plan identify neighborhoods? When you're from the north side, Willmar, you pride in the north side. Does this try to identify the neighborhoods to create neighborhood pride, and to then you can work on one neighborhood at a time and really start to identify, hey, we need a lot of work in this particular neighborhood, and really focus one at a time versus everything that nothing gets done.
yeah, so the first part of that question, if the plan identifies neighborhoods, it does not necessarily identify neighborhoods. Internally, what we are working on is to do like the blitz that I mentioned, to break the city up into 4 quadrants where, this one, north side has a month, or, south side has another month or a few weeks. So that way we are doing. The city of Willmar, we have a lot of like subdivisions, but not necessarily neighborhoods. And I think in time, maybe we can introduce different neighborhoods and or identify. I'm not sure what that looks like, but it will take more targeted outreach throughout the city to incorporate something like that.
In St. Joseph. We actually just gave money to the downtown owners of buildings to paint their properties. I'm sure there were some constraints and maybe it was a grant or whatever, but if you've been through there or you've been in there downtown, it's transition and it's different. It's fun to go through those types of things, but back to the comment that was made about you can't require someone to inform in some cases. Don't know how, if the goal is to transform an area and you can do it, you can't require it.
Well, it's not really requiring. Right now, we don't have any programs in place and we haven't communicated what resources property owners have in the gateway areas. And so I think that's part of it, just the overall education of our programs. One, establishing a fund or using monies or go after monies to make sure that we have it as a resource. So right now, it's not a resource. And if it is a resource, it is not well communicated throughout the city. So we would need to do that. I really love this strategy because it does spur so many conversations. And again, this is something that I think all of us kind of share, the need to improve what coming into Willmar looks like. The next strategy that I wanted to highlight is funding for future annexation or acquisition of properties. And so it does, outside of the city limits, we have the opportunity to annex property in the urban growth boundary. It does come with a cost, administrative costs and fees, and making sure that we can do analysis on properties to make sure that what we are annexing is one that as a regional hub, we are supporting smaller communities and their infrastructure needs, as well as making sure that the benefit is greater than the investment. So this is short term. We can certainly do this after the plan is hopefully adopted in June, but it provides a thorough physical impact analysis to estimate any costs associated with annexation. Some cities perhaps would say, oh, we just want to go and annex X, Y, and Z. But there has to be thoughtful consideration when talking about annexation. Again, these are residents who, for all means and purposes, live there, have their property in a different township or municipality. So we want to make sure that we're engaging with them and making sure that we're providing services. So here we have services outside of city limits. That was a partnership with the county once upon a time, as I understand it. But it's always interesting to revisit those conversations, especially with the townships, and just see what their needs are and how we can assist. Annexation would be one way to do that. Any questions about annexation? I feel like it came up a lot in the last month or so. That's a good question. Sometimes it happens both ways. So, Councilperson Nelson, your question is, do we approach or do we just wait until a township approaches us? It can happen, either or. I think the main goal is to make sure that we're both clear and there's a mutual understanding and a mutual want from the township and the city. That's what I can say. So.
I would say our preferred method is for the annexation. Really is the simplest, as we both parties agree on how they want to do. The director of corporate is exactly right. So we mutually like within parties, but as you know, strategically or strictly to the north and city limits along the pipe paths and people that have secondary gas station area, residential area. The city is already providing sanitary sewer service up there. Outside of city limits, but they can't put a nice picture where the fact that they want to equal likewise for the record. I think what we're getting to is that it's going to be for us to stay engaged.
Advantageous to the city for providing utilities outside of city limits.
Yeah, so that one in particular, we did a little research on this one around Eagle Lake was actually, as I understand it, was the Eagle Lake Sewer District that was established by the county in the 70s. And it was a 45-year agreement. So it was struck by the sewer district agreement to connect the city services right around where city limits are at. That sewer district is now more or less dissolved. Dissolved is a strong word, but ownership and operation of that district is now 100% taken by the city. That was an agreement that was between the county and the city. Yeah, so I would say 26, 14, something like that. The city started turning
rates around that issue, so. When we look at providing services in the future, I would say that particular is a unique circumstance where us directly paying for the infrastructure go in that direction. Initial construction now, as a council, is going we did just update 3 lift stations direct people on this last year. Lift station at 7. So we do continue to invest in that area. That would be a little forward in the future, but we have to look at a number of things. Conversation and for conversation, township residents that are serviced out there. Does it look like they promote maintenance? What's the cost of water utilities? Power, like getting that issue. These are all city services that we will provide when you any direction in these situations. So those are the things that we there's property taxes way back. More long-term discussion. Consistently.
It just seems like if you're looking to annex an area in order for that to be beneficial to the residents who live there, to their those services, if you're already providing the services prior to annexation, there's very little desirable in those residents to then be annexed into the city limits.
It's a unique circumstance. So
Yeah.
certainly.
Yes, Commissioner Bird?
Is there a water problem up there, west side of the salary?
Wouldn't necessarily call it a problem. The city was approached, residents kind of had a meeting about the condition of the water tower, and the city is actively listening, willing to step in and be a partner if we were asked to be, but that decision will be coming from the residents that are serviced by that line. So there would be a water quality issue, I would say, but more of an operation and maintenance. So I think it's
Repair and upgrade, yeah, the tower itself is the big problem. Correct?
potentially, yes, I have documented seen before as defenses.
How big an area does that water tower, where does the water tower start?
40 properties.
Northwest.
All of those properties are actually served by
Yes.
city.
Okay. Thanks for that, Kyle.
Yeah, quick fun fact,
Yes.
Eagle Lake happens to have sort of highest density of housing around it. So they're all 50-foot lots. And it's also the headwaters for all the water that flows through Willmar Lake and the rest. And so if every one of those houses had a septic system, it would all be flowing in the lake and all of the rest of the water. So I think they aim for like about a head that will come up.
I would think you see a lot of other lakes the last 20 years doing the same thing.
So we can keep doing that around the lakes. I think that will help our water quality everywhere.
Thank you. This one is mixed use development, and so we need to create zoning and design standards that promote regional and neighborhood commercial and mixed use development, ensuring alignment with the community's vision. This too, just like probably 97% of our strategies came from residents that we engaged with. They wanted to see more mixed use development. They wanted to see, first floor, more commercial or office-like, an apartment or condo living. This is going to be a little more complex than some of our other strategies. So we probably would need to, again, this would be part of overhauling our zoning code, 1894 zoning code, but improves neighborhood accessibility, cohesion, and character. It also improves development flexibility and zoning transparency. Some of the partners that we'll add KCD to this list. City of Willmar, because we own the strategy, developers, residents, landowners, and other stakeholders, as well as KCD and the county. The way that we can measure success is make sure that the mixed-use zoning and design standards are established. New mixed-use development is happening, and new neighborhood commercial development is happening. Kind of seems pretty easy to kind of take a temperature on some of our strategies just to make sure that it's done. But I think the largest step is doing it and then seeing how development patterns actually change. Any questions about mixed-use development? I'm hearing none. So this one I'm really excited about. Some of you all know about DTW, or Downtown Willmar. It was a branding switch that we did last year. We have had a lot of studies that have been done for downtown specifically, and every conversation we have, usually downtown, I think it came up today, downtown is a topic, and what can we do downtown? And so I think now is the time to implement a downtown pilot program that basically evaluates strategies from previous downtown plans, some from the Christopher 60s. I think it was like the 60s or the 70s that identified parking needs, it identified housing needs, it identified streetscapes, and those are all things that we're still trying to do today. And so we want to take a look at those plans and just start implementing some of the things. And so you notice some of the beautification that we've done downtown. Part of that is to do the branding. We have Block 25, which is a newer development for housing. But there's so much room or opportunity to kind of improve downtown and to kind of comply with what is happening now downtown. So it is a very bustling, mixed-use area, very diverse. And so how we can honor that and create spaces, public spaces that kind of honor the culture, the multicultural happenings that are happening downtown. Overall, it encourages innovative approaches to urban design and infrastructure to enhance the overall appeal and functionality of downtown. Some of our partners, of course, is us, the city of Willmar, the downtown community, so residents and business owners and other stakeholders, and developers as well. So how do we actually measure success of implementing a DTW pilot? We can establish economic metrics to track the number of new businesses. We have some data on new businesses and businesses' performance, job creations within downtown, and overall investment. I think this is going to be a large strategy coming out of the comprehensive plan that a lot of people will pay attention to and perhaps even volunteer to assist. And looking at this, I know we need to add KCD to be a part of this as well. But I do want to open it up for conversation about this strategy.
Are there any statistics on exactly how many people work downtown?
We can get that for you.
Like, so from the businesses that report, or is it?
We have data from, I think it's pre-COVID, so maybe it's 2019. It's an opportunity to redo it or to update it. And the data off the top of my head, I don't have the number for how many businesses are downtown.
They report it, or how do you gather that?
So we were once upon a time part of Main Street Americans, and that was part of Rethos, a state organization that works with Main Street America, and those were their metrics and their reports. So we weren't doing it internally. This is an organization that was doing it.
I think at the Midwest campus, they have to report how many employees they have every so often to the city.
Okay.
Yeah, that was part of their
We don't have, also it's probably important to mention, but we don't have like a community development organization for downtown. You know, some downtowns have that already, where they receive those reporting and they do all the work. So Main Street was done out of our planning department, and since then we have separated from Main Street. So
On that same line, do we have any idea what how many residents are in downtown?
that's a great question. We are working on that as we speak to make sure that we can take a look at the quality of apartment living too. So that's part of it.
I think KCED is planning on doing a business retention study in the near future, so it might be good to contact them and see if they could, as part of that study, do a little kind of focus on downtown.
Yeah, I agree. We'll definitely add them as a partner and move them into the strategy for sure. Any other comments, questions? Are we excited about implementing a downtown pilot? I think it's time, yeah. All right, I'm gonna go through housing as well. And we're gonna talk about a few things. I'm gonna start by telling you that, and we all know this in this room, but housing is a complex topic. You know, there are certain things that the city can do to promote development that is happening in the city. Some of those ways will be policy driven. It can be identifying gaps in infrastructure where parcels are undevelopable because there's no infrastructure, so the need for infrastructure. The guiding principles are here. Again, sustainability. Willmar can support inclusivity by fostering development. We can be innovative by exploring incentives for housing developments that address documented issues. So we've done a housing study. You know, oftentimes you have studies and you're then left with all of these numbers and data, and it's really about what we can do as a city. And so we can promote resiliency as well throughout changing, you know, building materials or lot sizes or what can be allowed on a residential lot. So just a few projects. I've shown these pictures throughout community engagement. These two images here are not in Willmar. However, that is a different way of doing housing development. This is a single family home here on a smaller lot. So this would be more low density or low residential. And then this is a duplex. It could actually be up to 4 units too in this dwelling. So in between these two dwellings. So just want to highlight a few things that, according to our 2023 American Community Survey, we wanted to compare ourselves to cities that are either similar in size or location. And so what you'll see is owner occupied and renter occupied. Owner occupied for Willmar is one of the highest, right after Fair Valley. So it is at 57.5 or 58%. Then we have renter occupied unit at 42.5. But if you look across some of these cities that we're comparing to, you'll see we're very similar. So the housing conversation, the housing needs in general, is a conversation that's happening throughout the U.S., almost every community. We just don't have enough housing. And so we have to kind of take a look at internally, we have to take a look at our policies to make sure that we're not creating barriers for development. The next three, I just want to go over the owner-occupied housing values. And so you'll see that most of our housing value is here between 200 and 299,000, whereas owner-occupied average housing costs a month. You know, these are units with mortgage, so you'll see that the highest amount is, or percentage is here, right over 1,400 units. They pay about $1,000 to $1,500 a month. And then you see without mortgages, their expenses or cost of living is right under 800, so between 600 and 800. We also took a look at year of housing year that the housing was built. What we noticed is about 50% of our single-family housing stock is 50 years or older. And development looks different. The way that families are living in homes are different. So we need to diversify our housing stock. And then you'll see that we hit between 2010 and 2017, there was a large increase in people moving into housing units. So I want to go over some of the strategies here. We know that we need to diversify our housing stock. And what that looks like is allowing by right more housing developments to be built. So this is townhomes, duplex, a triplex, or deconverting a single family home, or deconverting a multifamily home into a single family home. So those are all options. Willmar is unique in a way that we know we need multi-generational housing, but by right, our zoning code doesn't allow it, right? And so this is a low complexity. It is something that will be ongoing throughout our work, but it increases our housing inventory for home buyers and renters, expands stock of market affordable homes, and supports workforce recruitment and retention. So a lot of times we are in conversations with businesses and they say, we can't get people to stay long enough because they can't find housing. And so, or we are having a hard time recruiting because we don't have enough housing or adequate housing. So one way to do it is to diversify housing and increase units on the market. So some of our partners, Community Housing and Resources Center, which is an organization, state level, developers, city council, planning commissioners, we can do this with KCD as well in the county. Just taking a look at what other communities, surrounding communities are doing too when it comes to zoning and allowing housing to be developed. I'm going to stop here, and I think housing in general might spur a lot of conversation. So I do want to hear your thoughts and opinions about housing.
We get these kind of golf courses like that.
Yeah. This is great. I think this is in Colorado, and what it is, and I showed this during public engagement, but this is all mixed-use development. So you're saying single-family homes, you're saying duplex, you're saying multifamily in the back. But it's a really interesting development, and I thought that was probably it gets to the essence of what we want our neighborhoods to feel like. Not aesthetically, but all the different housing types.
Don't see is green space and something for the rainwater to go.
So right across the street is a park. Yeah, it's a park and rain gardens as well. Sarah, thanks for bringing that up.
So like, I don't have concern when I see that sort of level of development and really small lots. I don't have concern over wastewater capacity. If we've got millions of gallons of that, I don't have concern over water either. But we need to be mindful of where the storm water is going to go, and preferably not simply into the street, into a pipe to the lake, even though that's absolutely legally allowed.
I agree. Yeah. Comments, concerns, thoughts? Yes.
Just thinking up front, as a viable partner, maybe with the school district.
Great.
Talking about housing diversity.
We should add that to the strategy. Yes, of course. Yes.
This type of design is taking like a new piece of land. Where back to annexation, developing other area, other than, we got a lot of places right now where you can change the density of what's left, you know. So this, like some of the places we would find down from with water, or you can have this concept of that type of or how do you accomplish this neighborhood that's already developed?
So to those, Councilperson Nelson, how can we make development like this within city limits? So we have over 600 acres of land that can be developed in the city for residential. Right now, close to 600. This can be produced as a new sector or new division of housing, creating new neighborhoods. Someone said neighborhoods earlier. The other option is that some of this can be inspiration for infill lots, so smaller or neighborhood lots that's already primed for development. Infrastructure is already there throughout the city too. So the goal is to not only do all new development, but there are some opportunities in certain blocks to do infill development.
Down. Or when you say there's opportunities in the, give me an example.
Yep. So it could be a tear down. It could be a vacant lot. It can be lots that are large enough to be subdivided into two and build a home. So there's a lot of opportunity for infill development here in the city. Yes.
Another partner to be the West Central Builders Association.
Okay.
They were active 7 years ago.
We'll look into them. There's also a group of builders in the region that we're speaking to. So. Thoughts? Any other? So we hear that for our housing strategy, we'll definitely add HRA, KCED, and in the county as well. Affordable housing. This one is something that I feel like the city has been trying to move towards. This is a perfect way to kind of create permanent affordable housing in the city. So let's talk about affordable housing. We should establish, finance, and implement a community land trust or a land bank to acquire and develop permanent affordable housing options here in the city. This is probably medium complexity. We'll probably want to work closely with our legal team, as well as our community partners. HRA is here, the Willmar Area Community Foundation, as well as the city and county. But it ensures that development and preservation of permanent affordable housing options, making housing more accessible to residents. Oftentimes we talk about affordable housing, and affordable housing looks very different. I feel like we said this before at City Council and at Planning Commission, but affordable housing is a federal rule that you shouldn't spend more than 30% of your gross income on your housing needs. So affordable housing for us, the city, creating like a land bank or a community land trust would take away the cost of the land to the developer. And so we'll always own the land in a land trust or a land bank. The developer will then build a home, and it's almost like a person will then rent or purchase the home only. But the home is always maintained affordable because the land itself is held in a land bank. So this is one way to do it, that we can partner with different developers to make certain that we have permanent affordable housing. Is this a goal of the city? Based on the conversations that we've had, yes, it is, with our residents and prospective employees coming to the city. But even our residents that work here already. And so let's think about our teachers, our first responders who need housing, affordable quality housing. This is one way that perhaps if their income is meets the requirement, they can purchase a home that's in the land bank or land trust. This isn't a saturated population of housing, affordable housing. This is scattered sites throughout the city. So I'll stop there. Happy to answer any questions about affordable housing when it comes to establishing a land bank or land trust. Yes.
You just answered my question, but, so this is, the city sees a house up for sale, they buy the land and then they resell the house.
Possibly that is one way to do it. So you can do new development in the land bank as well as existing development. You can do that. Even if a developer, let's say hypothetically, if a developer develops 100 homes and cut a deal with the city or a nonprofit to purchase certain units, they can do that as well. Any other questions? Comments? Okay. The rental housing program, so we are working from a 1990 rental housing maintenance and occupancy ordinance. This will need to be updated. This is something that we can definitely do internally. We have taken a good look at it to make sure that we're making improvements that are conducive to the way people live, as well as fair to renters and landowners or landlords. So some of our partners will be, of course, the city residents, landlords, the county, as well as Minnesota Housing, which is an HRA. Minnesota Housing is one of the partners that should be probably at more conversations or at the table, more conversations that we're having about housing. So we'll make sure that we'll reach out to them too. Right now we have about 3,500 rental units in our rental housing program, and it is really important to make sure that we are providing a level of service that is conducive to the way that people are living and throughout the city. So updating that is a priority for me, and hopefully we'll be working on that or bringing something to council this year. So, any questions about the rental housing ordinance? Yes, Gilbertson. No, that's what today is for.
State of Minnesota treats businesses differently. If you have 10 employees or less, you have less rules. If you have 50 employees or more, you have different rules. Can you have different rules for how many rental units you have in a community to treat them differently?
Absolutely. Councilperson Gilbertson, I believe what you're referring to is like the small landlord versus a large conglomerate that owns a lot of properties. There's certain things that resources we can provide to small landlords. I think it comes back to the conversation we had earlier about being more of a resource to landowners and property owners throughout the city. So coming up with getting grants, being more programmatic, and talking about the small landlords. So their needs are very different. So. Any other questions? Yes.
Is there a way to make sure that everybody who's renting has all the rules, that they know their rights?
Yes.
Do they all get that in their language?
That is something that we are working on, and part of what I hope is part of the rental housing program update, that each lease should be equipped with this program. Because it is a requirement of ordinance that all rental units must be in our rental housing program. Right now, we don't regulate short-term rentals, so it's an opportunity to kind of look at that too. Yes.
Define short-term.
Short-term rental, think of Airbnb, anything less than 30 days. If it's longer than 30 days, it is a lodging tax or consecutive for 30 days or more, or it needs to be a permanent, like a lease, if you will. So short-term rentals will be Airbnbs, VRBOs, I take that back, 3, 6, and 9 month lease. Those two are short-term leases too.
Maybe 30 years considered short.
Yeah. And we have a few of them here, so.
Do we monitor whether they appear to be short-term?
We are, yes, to an extent. If, we have our renters have a right, speaking of their rights, one thing is to notify the city if a landlord is not compliant with the rental housing program, and so we can investigate at that time. But it would need to come from the renter. Yes.
You don't regulate short-term rentals, but do you have data on them to know how many there are in the community?
It's really hard to get data on short-term rentals. One, organizations like Airbnb, they will not share their data. And so it's taking a little more work and working with the state to make sure that we can find it.
You have a ballpark.
To share.
Have we looked at putting the charge up?
I would add that that's one of the things one of the immediate things we do after the comprehensive plan is hoping to update this rental ordinance. And right now, short-term rentals are completely unregulated in the city. So that's one thing we talked about. We might even do this an emergency short-term rental one while we're working on the entire rental ordinance. Just because they are unregulated, we know there's potential for abuse there. And I know, similar to what Councilwoman Gilbertson was saying, was some cities I know have limited how many of these short-term rentals can be with a certain amount of block radius from each other. So that entire blocks that are being bought turn into. So that's all pretty good.
And aren't like hotels and stuff like that, shouldn't short-term rentals be included in something like that where they're paying that special tax that goes back to the convention and visitor bureau?
So hotels will be a little different because they do pay taxes.
Well, yeah, that's what, like these Airbnbs, they should be paying the same taxes that the hotels are paying under that. Is it a count? I think it's a county. Ordinance. Yeah.
I mean, it's upward to explore. I think that, we're seeing a lot, especially because of the lakes here, especially during the spring and summertime, especially the summer. We saw quite a few last year. So we're taking a look at it. I don't have anything to share today, but perhaps when I bring the rental housing program update, I will. Did you pull it up?
Just search how many I can buy. Right, month of July.
That's a lot. Okay.
There are hotels that set up short-term rental rooms.
We'll have to probably have a conversation offline about that.
So, question.
Yes.
What about the people that live in town, in which winter plan comes, they go to Arizona and they get their house also in short-term rental? How do you control that? So they live here, pretty much people above certain age, with all due respect, they will go to Florida for 3 months and they collect their house on short-term rental. Is there a way to control that?
Well, we can't really get in the business of controlling homesteads or, your primary residence and what you choose to do. But there is an opportunity to look at if they are renting the property or if it is a short-term lease, then, that's something we can look into, but we can't police how people use their properties.
Majority of them typically don't pay. My parents used to do that.
So that again, sorry.
My parents used to do over where they would put down.
So that's the homeowner's responsibility. They have their property. All right, this one I'm really excited about. It is the housing needs assessment. So we have a housing study that was done. What we're really needing is a housing needs assessment. So we know that, so many units between 2010 to 2017, we had units increase, but we need to get a precise number on how many units were increased and what did that do for our housing needs. The housing needs assessment will also forecast future needs and how are we going to attain future development in the city. This one is like a medium term, so it's not that complex. It provides valuable information to developers and decision makers. It increases our awareness of our housing supply. Partners for this is the KCED. So I'll change that. Community housing organizations, again, the state as well, and HRA should be a part of this conversation. And the completion of the housing needs assessment and the implementation of it. What I imagine from the housing needs assessment is, we have a comprehensive plan, we move into the rewrite of the zoning, and then we're seeing development happen, and the housing needs assessment is kind of tracking and putting it all together. What's working for Willmar, what's not working for Willmar, and what innovative ways we can do, and which developers we can actually reach out to and talk with. I completed a housing needs assessment for my previous role at the city of Pittsburgh, and those are things that they are still using to this day. So it generates a lot of conversation, especially when you're talking to developers. They want to know what they can build, where they can build, and what type of housing they should be looking at. Any questions about the housing needs assessment? This is different from the housing study that was done. The housing study is basically data or research that was done. The housing needs assessment is specifically talking about the types of housing that we lack, the affordability that we need, as well as policies that can be changed. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over for a very fun part. Pablo Obregon, I'm going to ask you to join me. We all love Pablo, so we want Pablo to kind of go over this chapter, and then we'll wrap up here in a minute.
I remember being told that the best part is always saved for the end. So here we go. I also remember a little story about Keep Your Fort. Some of you know that. So the best is yet to come. I want you to pay attention to that picture. For some of you, it's behind you. Some of you, it's on the side or in front of you. So look at that. And now pretend you are going to have an eraser and you're going to erase all the people from that picture. Okay, got it? So I think that these parts of arts and culture is the people of our community. And the picture over there, the rest of it, the ecology, the framing, is all the things that we have been working so far on the on this subject that we've been talking about on the comprehensive plan. So this is the people part. This is something that I think previous plans haven't included, and I'm very happy that now we are in a system within the city that my office of community growth, with this plan into the future, we are adding this specific component of art and culture. So when we envision Willmar's future, one can help but think of the city's landmark art installations and its celebrations of diverse cultures. When I talk about Willmar, and when people are asking many of us to talk about Willmar, there is a reason why. It's because of what Willmar is today and the different opportunities and programs and events that are happening in town. So through intentional planning, the city desires to enhance its aesthetics, highlight community gatherings, amplify perspectives, and strengthen its identity. As a regional hub, Willmar's arts and culture activities attract residents and visitors that support the economy. A good example of that is talking with Corey Hapala from my town, video producer. He told me last Friday at Live Connections that the video about Willmar had more than 60,000 hits, including people from Europe, South and Central America, and Africa. Little Willmar, Minnesota. So when we talk about arts and culture, we are not only talking about what we are doing here in Willmar, but how people are seeing us. We are promoting a sense of community. So we have different planning needs, and we have several slides that are talking about the different aspects of our community. Priorities emphasize traditions to bolster a more welcoming community for all. Offer diverse arts and cultural learning opportunities to highlight Willmar's global society, ensuring that people of all ages and backgrounds can engage with and benefit from these experiences. Advocacy, you are seeing in front of you the different language. Let me jump to the community part. Identify, develop, and promote creative overlay districts that serve as hubs of artistic and cultural activity, drawing residents and visitors alike. Design the use of public facilities and provide affordable spaces for creative work, ensuring that artists and cultural organizations have the physical resources they need to succeed. And in terms of the investment, establish clear goals and objectives for the fund, identify the types of projects and initiatives to be supported, such as public art installation, cultural events, educational programs, and more. Implement measurable outcomes to track the impact of the fund. Stimulate the local economy by attracting tourists, businesses, and residents. Cultural events and institutions create jobs, generate revenue, and stimulate economic activity in related sectors such as hospitality and retail. So this is a good example. This slide is a good example of what the next slides are going to be. There is a lot of events. There's a lot of economic development connected to that. There's a lot of preservation of the different traditions that we have. So I'm not going to go through I'm not going to go through all of them, but maybe the titles will help you guide this conversation if you have any questions. So the guiding principle is how arts and cultures can support the sustainability. Based initiatives can engage communities to identify and find solutions to local, national, and worldwide problems. Let's keep moving, because so the strategies that we have that you find in the plan is establish guidelines to promote and support a wide range of public art and creative placemaking projects across Willmar. As you can see, we are working very hard on creating these spaces, and the goal is to continue to grow and provide opportunities for the entire community. And when I say entire community, I'm also saying, yes, out of Willmar, but it becomes a regional attraction to our neighbors surrounding us, which also brings, and as you see in the next slides, opportunities for more investment in our businesses, in spending money going to restaurants, or participating in the hotel business, staying overnight. The benefits will be support placemaking and community aesthetics, develop community identity, support local artists. The partners, City of Willmar, Willmar Area Arts Council, Southwest Minnesota Arts Council, Willmar Education and Arts Center. And let's make sure that we include the residents on that one. I think that's an obvious one. But many of the activities that have been created have been initiated throughout not only the last 2 years I've been here, but many opportunities people have said, why don't we do this? So this is our own residents thinking about what is it that Willmar needs. You know, a good example is the International Festival, Heritage Festival that we just had last Friday. 2 years ago at the Vision 2040 panel of new immigrants, one of the ladies, a person from Ukraine, Nadia, when she was asked the question, what are your dreams and hopes for our community? She said, we need to have another international festival in town. We heard that. We have they hosted our second year international festival last Friday, and close to 1,000 people were in the high school. And of course, that was an opportunity to showcase the different heritages of our community. Utilize, activate underutilized spaces, utilize underused spaces for arts and cultural activities, support placemaking and revitalization again, encourage low-cost productivity, use of available spaces. The partners, you see them in front of you, measure of success on this one, the number of events, demonstration projects, or redevelopment initiatives and community reception. I'm going through this kind of fast so that we can have a general conversation about this specific chapter. Another one is the Artists in Resident program, which I think this is a great idea. I was happy to read about it. Establish a residency program to enhance the aesthetics of public spaces, creating a sense of place and identity. The benefits, support local artists and promote arts and cultural activities. The partners on this one, City of Willmar, and many of the ones we have already mentioned. In this one, we are adding the Richwater College, which is another great asset in our community. The measures of success, establishment of program, increasing public art installations and events. On this strategy, develop and implement the streetscaping guidelines. Let's jump to the benefit, support placemaking and revitalization, support innovative approaches to stormwater management. Partners again, City of Willmar, developers, business owners, and residents. The measures of success, the incorporation of the streetscaping guidelines into zoning ordinance, corridor studies, or downtown study, which we just mentioned about this, and the completion of the streetscaping demonstration projects. On this one, I wonder if Christopher, do you have anything else to add on this one?
I'll add that some of this work we're starting to do already, and Pablo kind of mentioned it's already. So for zoning, downtown already has its own overlay for its own zoning. Some of the beautification that we've done with the rebranding from just with DTW is already happening. So you saw the banners and planters, and so we're trying to make sure that we're consistent, coming up with more annual things that are happening and people can look forward to. So within a few weeks, around Memorial Day weekend, we'll have summer pots. So those are the flowers on Becker and Litchfield. Through this comprehensive plan, there's a need to pilot a program like Summer Streets, where you close off the street every first Friday or something like that, just to get conversation going and creating space or activating underutilized spaces. So we're working on some of those things now, but formally.
And of course, you have the chart again that sees the overall of the process on this specific chapter. Any questions about the arts and culture? Comments?
Seems like the residency program, I like that idea of having some type of artist lots or where they can all get together. And I think that we can get diverse one stone, get some housing. Typically low income housing, and so it's plenty of starving artists up there. Then you create a culture. And we're together. Sad.
There's a huge need for more co-working spaces in general. An easy way to do it, a low-hanging fruit would be through like the industry program, where we create, we're working with the developer that wants to create like studios, common space. That's an option that we. And this is like a 2-3 year project out. The artist and residency program might not live under the city's umbrella, but a nonprofit can easily run it. The other way is, we can cut the cost for any developer to be owning property and let them develop undeveloped land. Vacant sites.
I think one of the things that you see in that has a common theme is the development and capacity of this arts and culture focus, which the city needs to start positioning itself in a way that we can allow with our own monies and budget to have programs and different spaces that we are trying to provide. Again, this is something that is unique, but it's an opportunity for us to invest in the future of our community. So we're hoping that it will allow us to imagine how we can continue to support all these programs and events. And we're doing a lot through sponsorships and partnerships, but it would be good also to have its own budget.
Thanks, Pablo. All right, so we'll just go ahead and wrap up here. I just want to remind you of our public process. I'll see you next time at I'll see you all soon. I'll see you on May 19th, where we'll have a briefing and call for a public hearing for June 16th. For the comprehensive plan, Planning Commission will be presenting just final chapters to Planning Commission and a recommendation for adoption on the 21st. And so we'll be in front of City Council again on June 16th. Earlier, this check was yellow, so we got savvy and made it green because we're now done. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council and planning commissioners. Thank you. If you don't want to have a discussion or no, we kind of discussed everything. Okay, I agree with that. All right, we're done.